2 isosceles and equilateral triangles. Okay, so isosceles triangles prove the isosceles triangle theorem. If two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles of the opposite sides are congruent. Meaning, if two sides are congruent, like if these two sides equal to each other, then that means this angle is congruent to that angle. Okay, so I'm going to go through this proof, and as you remember, anytime you have a proof, you do the givens first. Okay, so this one is that AB is congruent to AC. That's a given. And also that X is the midpoint. Okay, X is the midpoint of BC. Those are both given, so that's what I write down first. Okay, so next I say, so if X is the midpoint of BC, I think that this is missing some letters. Okay, then this is X. If X is the midpoint of BC, the next thing I can conclude is that BX is going to be congruent to X or CX, okay? So BX is congruent to CX. That is definition of midpoint. All right, and then it says AX is congruent to AX, which is reflexive property. Because whatever is congruent to itself is called reflexive. Okay. So now I can say that ABX is congruent to ACX. Okay, and then that is all corresponding sides are congruent. Okay, so that means angle B is congruent to angle C. So we haven't learned corresponding parts and stuff yet, but basically it's saying that if you have two triangles and there's two parts that are corresponding to each other, that those corresponding parts are congruent to each other. Okay, so CPCTC. That's what the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So converse of the isosceles triangle theorem. If two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite the angles are congruent. Okay, so two angles of a triangle are congruent if and only if two sides of the triangle are congruent. Okay, so there's that. Let's go ahead and work this problem. Okay, it says use the diagram for the triangle ABC. It's isosceles. Okay, so the vertex, this is my vertex. So that means if that's my vertex, that these two angles are the same. Okay, so this is going to be 130 degrees, and that's going to be an X. So I'm going to add them all together. So X plus 130 equals 180 degrees. Okay, so that's 2X plus 130 equals 180 degrees. So it's 180 degrees because all angles added together equal 130, or 180, excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 130 from both sides, so I get that 2X equals 50, and X equals 25. Okay, so isosceles triangles, these two are congruent based off of the tick marks that are sitting there. So if those two sides are congruent, the opposite angles are congruent, making 7X plus 35 equal to X plus 65. Okay, the bases are congruent, base angles are congruent, so of course that means that the two angles are congruent. So 6X plus 35 equals 65. Okay, I'm going to subtract 35 to the other side. Okay, so 6x equals 30. Divide both sides by 6, so x equals 5. Okay, and they want us to find angle M. So to find angle M, I first need to find the measure of one of these angles down here at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it into 7 times 5 plus 35. Okay, so that's going to be 70 degrees. Okay, so if one side is 70 degrees, or one angle is 70 degrees, that means the other angle is 70 degrees. So I have to find what M is by doing 180 minus 70. So that means angle M is going to be 40 degrees. Okay, so example 3. Okay, so again, isosceles. Okay, if isosceles with vertex B. So if that's my vertex, that means that these two are congruent to each other. So if I want to find X, find AC, which I'm going to find AC in just a minute by finding X. I need to find what that is. Okay, so I do know that 3X minus 18 is equal to X plus 10. I'm going to subtract X from both sides. So I've got 2X minus 18 equals 10. I'm going to add 18 to the other side. So I get 2x equals 28. Divide both sides by 2. So x will equal 14, sorry. Okay, so if x equals 14, I'm going to plug that into here. So that means that AC equals 11. All right, so we're going to talk about equilateral triangles now. Equilateral triangles are all sides are the same, so that means all angles are the same, okay? So, okay, all sides of the triangle are congruent. Okay, and then all angles of the triangles are congruent as well. Okay. Okay, so a triangle is equilateral if and only if all angles are congruent. Okay, you know, angles are congruent. Okay, so that being said, let's look at example 5. Okay, so all of these sides are the same, so that means all of these angles are also the same. So 180 degrees total inside of a triangle, I'm going to divide that by 3, so that means each angle is 60 degrees. So I need to find x by taking that 3x minus 18, setting it equal to 60 degrees. I'm going to add 18 to both sides. I've got 3x equals 78. If I divide both sides by 3, I get that x equals 26. Okay, and this is equilateral, and it's also equal angular. Equilateral meaning equal sides. Equal angular meaning equal angles. Okay, so equilateral, all sides are the same. Okay, let's go take a look at this one, example 6. Okay, so this is also an equilateral or equal angular equilateral triangle, okay, but that means that all the sides are the same, and we only have 2 of the sides, so that means you take those 2 sides and set them equal to each other. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. So 4x minus 24 equals 16. Add 24 to both sides. So 4x equals 40. Divide both sides by 4, x equals 10.